Good evening. Welcome to the August 6th edition of the Derry Cooperative School District. I apologize for the slight delay here tonight. If we all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. All right, so we have the approval of the July 9th public minutes. I take a motion to approve.
So moved.
First by Jason,
Second.
second by Michael. All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, hold on a sec. We have a correction, possible. Okay. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
I abstain, I was not here. We have 401. We have 5. All right, so next we have delegation individuals. Anyone want to come up for 3 minutes and give your name and address for the record?
Good evening, board members, administrators. I just wanted to follow up a few comments from the Tom Carden to Cunningham Drive. Sorry, Jonathan. I know you guys know me. Anyway, I just wanted to follow up on some of the information that you gave at the last meeting. I liked your facilities priority. As you can see, I've kind of marked it up a little bit, but I think this is the #1 plan that you guys should be working on. And hopefully this gets passed sooner than later. I know you've got it down for, it was $22 million, and I think Joe said it was probably going to be more like 27, 28, 29 million, something like that. I mean, I know those numbers are going to go up. So anyway, I hope you work on this. I hope you pass it. I'm still concerned about, you voted to float a $38 million bond for the facilities, and I know that's not binding, but I would be concerned that's that won't pass. So anyway, hopefully you can get this done sooner than later. I know Katie's not here, and Brenda, you talked about a PR plan. And I think that's a good idea. I think it's a very good idea. I think it'll probably help sell this program. But I would urge you to get this plan passed first. I know you guys take a little bit longer working out details of the PR. But anyway, those are just my comments, and thank you.
Thank you. Well, good evening. Richard Tripp, 44 Wyndham Road. Thank you for putting that list together. I don't think I would have done it that way, but I'm not in charge, so you can do whatever you want. I did go through and separate all the priority items that were on the list, and for all the schools. And it came out to about $10.8 million. Of course, the high flyer was South Range, with facade repairs and roof repairs. I spent quite a bit of time going through it because the numbers didn't correlate from what I saw, but then that's probably because of the way you put it together. You had highest priorities, then you had priorities, Then you had priorities and highest priorities. Then you had future things and priorities. And then finally you had future things, priorities, and I don't know. But anyhow, they were just kind of glommed together, and I couldn't see where the numbers added up. It's kind of like the 401, you know. That was a joke, Dave. I hope that when you go through the priorities and stuff, that you can sit down and talk about, you know, what makes a priority, and what makes a high priority, you know, because it aids in understanding, you know, why projects are being put in the order that they're being put. How much time do we have left? Nobody says? Oh, no timer. Oh, I can talk forever then.
The clock's up here, so I'll let you know.
All right, when you ring the bell, I'll ask for an extension. But anyhow, what I would suggest is, instead of asking for $38 million to fix everything, you know, I know the last meeting when Jonathan said, well, I think someone asked what's a priority, and Jonathan's response was, everything's a priority, you know. So we need to fix everything, so we need, you know, and in Joe's mind, that was $49 million. Even though Joe wasn't here, Austin said that, were you here last time? Okay. Well, then I'll accuse you of saying $49 million. Anyhow, like I said, I put together the list of what are the highest priorities for all the schools. And like I said,
Before you go with your list, I'll take a motion to extend Richard's time.
all right,
So moved.
well, I'm not gonna go through the list.
Okay,
I'm just
we'll do it
gonna say
anyways. First by Michael,
Second.
second by Jason, all in favor? I'll give you another minute, Richard.
All right, thank you. So anyhow, what I'm going to suggest is that rather than asking for $38 million on a warrant, because I have a very strong suspicion that that will not fly, that you ask for somewhere around 10.8 million to fix the highest priorities, you know, because I'm pretty sure that will fly. And for the other problems, that you go back to the capital reserve fund method for funding repairs and renovations, and that every year you decide what it is you want to fix and how much money you want to put in the capital reserve fund. Because even though that has to be approved by the voters, if you only ask for, say, like $1.2 million, that might pass, you know. I know the last meeting you talked a long time about how are we going to convince the voters to approve providing funding to us. And I says to myself, I says, you should take little bites instead of big, you know, chunks. And that's all I have to say. Thank you for the extension.
All right, well, thank you, guys. Before we move on, we do have the quick amendment to the minutes on page 2, under personnel, top of page 2. We have Amy Peters, it's actually Haley Peters, so I would look for a motion to make that change on the minutes. First by Brenda,
Second.
second by Michael, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, that's 5-0. You looking for it, Jonathan? It's on page, if you print it out, it's on page 2 under, right before next charter. All right. In personnel, actually, yeah, exactly. All right, good to go. Motion passes 5-0. All right, so I'm up for this. So the superintendent search update. So Kathy Kennedy has went through and put together an RFP for the process. And and she sent them out last Monday to 3 firms. One was G&D, one was NASDAQ, and I think Rochester used them. They sounded like they were pretty happy with their search. And one of them was Coyer Associates, which was recommended by somebody previously on the board. So we sent those out on that previous Monday, and we put a deadline of August 16th to hear back for those. And then Michael and I will do phone calls for references and kind of understand the proposals, and then we'll bring back to the board on the 27th the three proposals with some feedback on how our discussions went with each individual group. So that's kind of, I know originally we were talking about exclusively looking at G&D. The thought process was we should open this up, obviously, as that makes sense in everything we do. So hopefully we'll, it sounds like definitely 2 out of 3 of the firms come highly regarded. So hopefully I'm excited to see those proposals when they come back. And then what I would ask the board, and I know we have a couple board members who are out tonight, if anyone is willing to join that committee when it does get assigned from the board, obviously that'd be great. We can talk more about that later, but just think about it from a time commitment perspective. I'm sure it is a lot of work. But so think about that, and we'll talk more. But so more to come in this, but just let everyone know that we've got the process started, and that once we get these proposals in and they get approved, whichever one we select, I think this process will start to really heat up and move forward at a pretty good clip. I don't know, is there any questions from board members at this time?
Have we invited 3 different firms to submit proposals, or is this out to anybody who wants to submit a proposal?
We sent them to the three specific entities. And it is on our website if people want to see it as well, if they want to review the proposal. But yeah, we sent them out to those 3. Obviously, if that doesn't work out, we can go even further, but we thought those were a pretty good sample of entities out there that would do good work.
I would assume, it's the RFP is posted, anybody can submit a proposal, but we did send it to 3 firms that were recommended, which I think is pretty routine, right? You guys send out, RFPs to known firms.
All right, so more to come in that. So getting that process started is really big because we want to be ahead of the game moving forward. And I think starting now will get us there, and we'll probably get some great candidates as well. So, all right, Austin, you want to do the update on the compensation committee, or whoever's, you or
Yep.
Joe? Thank you.
Okay, so we had a compensation, school board compensation subcommittee meeting Tuesday, July 23rd, 9 a.m. at the SAU conference room. David Clapp, Wilbert Danger, Jonathan Dugan, Kathy Kennedy, Laura Powers, Jane Samad, Joe Crawford, and myself. The first topic was New England Center for Children, otherwise known as NECC, tutors' benefits. In an effort to be more consistent with current benefits for the AFSCME union assistants, the following benefits were agreed to by the school board members on the compensation committee to be brought to the full school board, which is what we're doing tonight. Change the 5 leave days to 5 sick days, and they would remain non-accumulating. And for that item, there is no cost. Currently, the AFSCME benefit is 10 sick days that can be accumulated year to year, up to a total of 40. Secondly, add 3 personal days. This is consistent with the AFSCME benefit. And again, there's no cost to this item because substitutes are not hired for NECC tutors. Third, add 7 holidays. Once again, consistent with the AFSCME benefit. If all 25 positions are filled, currently there are 10 openings, the current cost of this benefit would be $25,731.75. However, as we fill more positions, we create space for currently outplaced students to return to the district, thereby creating savings which would offset any additional spending. And fourth, add bereavement days, and again, this is consistent with the AFSCME benefit. And as far as cost, as with all employees, there is no cost unless one or more bereavement days are necessary. So we have a few other items. Do you want to discuss this item first and then vote and so forth?
Yeah, I think, Austin, part of what we discussed too was, you guys have been working over a certain period of time to try to bring the pay and the benefits up to a certain level that to remain competitive and obviously, be consistent with our AFSCME benefits. And as you articulated, and I think this is, obviously we want to give people better benefits and for the work they do. This is extremely, extremely important position. But we also, by recruiting and retaining people, we are able, like you said, is to have less out-of-district placements, which can run up to $100,000 a year per student, depending on where they're sent, if not more. So, if I think that was the thought process in the committee when we discussed this, and obviously it's open up to the board to discuss, but that was kind of what we discussed as the committee.
So I have a question as it relates to C. It looks like it's about $1,000 per position. And David, you just placed a number there. Do we have maybe an example kind of as the offset, right? So we're talking about as we fill more positions, we create space. Does this in essence maybe become sort of a wash, or do we benefit? You know what I mean? If obviously if we're not outplacing students, it could be at a significant cost. But is there an example or a figure? I know you said 100,000, but just as what it would look like from an offset or a savings or a gain to the district?
So Laura is not here tonight. This would be something that she would answer, but normally when she talks about outplacements, it's doubled, if not sometimes tripled, the cost of having a student in-house, even though NECC has its own added cost comparisonly, but nowhere near out of placement. And nowadays, you heard the issue with the transportation as well. There's not as many spaces out there, so oftentimes when we could have put 3 students at this particular institution, we might have to put them to 3 different locations. There's also transportation costs. So for every student, and it's better for the student, of course, as well, to stay in district as much as possible. But even beyond that, cost-wise, just bringing one student back would save more than the $25,000
Thank you.
easily.
In actually it might be all, I don't want to misspeak, but most NECC tutors are a 1-to-1, correct? So it's
Yes.
one tutor to
Yeah.
one student, right? So that's where we see those excessive transportation costs and out-of-district placement costs. So yeah, if we can go from 10 unfilled positions even down to 5, there should be a drastically high net savings, even if it's halfway, that's 12,500 or something.
Right.
That we'd be, that we'd be increasing, but we'd be decreasing our out-of-district placements by, tens of thousands, if not close to hundreds of thousands for those.
Correct.
And I think what I would say too is as a group, we'd kind of challenged the administration saying, if we do this, we want to actually budget making sure we're keeping kids in. And so it kind of puts a target of what they need to get, like a goal, right? So it's not just a lip service, right? We actually want to do something that challenges them to make sure what they say could happen does happen. So hopefully that's something we can talk about in the budget process, obviously. But that's something we did discuss in pretty good detail about that. Making sure that if we do this, we start hiring people, that we start seeing the results, and we'll track it and make sure it's happening. So that's kind of a discussion we had as well.
Can we just be reminded of the NECC tutors, and are they district employees or are they NECC employees, and how does that work just for the benefit of everybody, since we're calling them NECC tutors, we're not calling them Derry Cooperative School District tutors?
Right.
Thank you.
It's both. The teacher for the program comes from NECC. And I'm going to throw this out there if somebody remembers in talking to Laura Powers, I believe the contract, there's 2 tutors who come from NECC. They're NECC tutors that are paid for by NECC, and then they bill us. And we've had to get, sometimes if we can't hire our own, and then there's NECC tutors who are district employees. So there's NECC tutors who are paid through NECC, and then they bill us just like they bill us for the teacher. And then we have our own NECC tutors that are district employees. This is specifically for our own Derry Cooperative School District NECC tutors. And as I was saying, sometimes NECC will have a third tutor that's available, and we don't have one that we were able to hire. That costs us a little bit more, but sometimes we will. It's better to have that than possibly have to outplace a student.
Okay. Just to clarify, so these are actually Derry Cooperative School
That is
District
correct.
tutors. So why do we call them NECC tutors?
So
It's like other special ed programs. You know, this is a teacher that works in Project Me, or this is a teacher that works in ISLE. We don't name them separately like this. So I'm
Right.
trying to understand why we're doing it with these guys.
they are not in the AFSCME union like the other assistants. So I would agree with you. What we should call them is NECC tutors or Derry Cooperative School District NECC tutors.
Yes,
So
clearer.
that's definitely clearer. So they're all NECC tutors, but some of them are Derry Cooperative School District NECC tutors, and they are not in the AFSCME union. We're trying to give them more of the benefits that assistants who are in the AFSCME union would get. And we're hoping that that will bring more people into the position, and we'll be able to hire more people and keep people as well.
Okay, if there are any more questions, I would accept a motion to accept this change.
So moved?
First by Jonathan,
Second.
second by Jason. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So that's, I should have said any discussion, but I guess I already asked that. Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, next is year-round support personnel, and there's an A and a B to this. The first part is availability of vacation at time of hiring. Currently, year-round support personnel are not, do not receive their 10 days of vacation until they complete the first year of employment. What we would like to do, and what we discussed with the school board subcommittee, was employees will receive 10 vacation days after the completion of a 90-day probation period. And again, these are year-round support personnel, so they can be hired at any time of the year. So from whenever their date of hire is, they work for 90 days, and then they would be available to receive one or more of their vacation days that they're looking to take, up to a total of 10. Now, their employees may petition the superintendent for use of vacation days prior to the end of the probationary period. So far, that has not happened in my tenure. And this would come with no cost other than the fact that they would get the 10 days sooner than they would have got it under the current plan.
I have a question on that one, too.
Yep.
Obviously, 90 days being a lot sooner than 1 year gives it somewhat of an advantage when it comes to hiring, attracting, retaining, et cetera. My question is 90 days still too long? And this is just a topic for discussion. Does it maybe, my opinion, does it make sense to maybe have it be by hour worked or by day, and there's maybe an incremental, so you get to the 10 by 90, but you have a little bit available sooner? Just if it helps to potentially, and you guys can, you know better than I, but if it helps to potentially attract and retain folks, if they've got some time available to them, sooner. Just a thought.
So, sort of a two-part answer. What we have now is, let's say we're hiring somebody for August 1st. They may have a vacation planned in the third week of August that was already, they inform us of that, and they could petition the superintendent to see if we would be willing to do that. More often than not, the people just take that unpaid because they want to take that vacation. I do believe, and I think if you're talking about you accumulate 1 day of vacation over a certain amount of time, for lack of a better way to put this, we have a small finance department, and that would be, with the number of employees, that would be difficult to keep track of and so forth. So I think that's why we zeroed in on the 90 days. And our thought process is a lot of companies have a 90-day probation period and that type of thing. If we have somebody that comes here and they work for 90 days and they've been a good employee, we expect that they're going to continue to be employed and continue to be a great employee. And we think that's enough time to sort of make sure that they're earning those vacation days.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a good question, Jason. This was the compromise, because during the committee, we had a pretty spirited conversation about this particular section, because the benefit here is the individuals get the 10 days and day 91. It's not an accrual-based system, so they are getting it up front, and technically, if they left it 6 months later, they get paid that out. So we all landed on the 90 days. It gives them some flexibility in case they don't work out, and we're not paying them out right away. And then, showing they've proven their worth and they're a good employee, then they can start using their vacation time. So that was kind of the compromise, because we weren't going to do an accrual-based system.
Understood. Thank you.
Should we vote on that one? All right, so motion to accept the,
Yeah, it's sort of.
well, that's why it's, yeah, that's why I said, should we vote on this one
'cause
separately?
you may have different thoughts.
question.
No, thank you.
So can you just tell us who are year-round support personnel? Explain who those people are.
We have 2 school secretaries. There was one at each middle school. Now both are over at Gilbert H. Hood Middle School. All of the support staff within the SAU, including a number of staff who work in finance, secretaries for special ed, secretaries for HR, secretaries, my secretary, Joe's secretary.
The technology department,
Say that again?
the technology department.
Technology support staff. And, am I missing anybody? And custodians, yep. Basically, the non-union year-round employees. The 2 school secretaries, and then custodians, tech support, SAU support staff.
Thanks. I just
Yep.
wanted to understand who they were.
Yep.
Motion to accept the 10 vacation days after a 90-day probationary period for our year-round support personnel.
Second.
First by Jonathan, second by Jason. Any discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So motion passes 5-0.
Okay, Part B, eligibility for the AFSCME perfect attendance bonus for year-round. I'll mention them again. Brenda asked the question, I should have put this into the...
It's right here.
Yeah, I know, but I
read
should have
down.
put it in A also. Non-union employees, custodians, school secretaries, tech support staff, SAU support staff. Their current benefit is $150 for one semester. That goes to $400 if they have perfect attendance for both semesters. Our suggestion is that we move to the AFSCME benefit that was just approved last year, which you see down there. The total, it would add $200 to the total. If somebody had perfect attendance for the whole year, now it's $400. If they had perfect attendance for the whole year under the AFSCME plan, it would be the 3 and the 3, it would be $600, but it would also give them the availability, because again, yeah, our AFSCME employees are 183 days, and the full-time people are 260, so they'd still be getting that same benefit. It's a lot more work time for them to have this perfect attendance, but we thought they should at least have this AFSCME benefit.
So I'll just say, from my perspective, I'm going to vote yes on this, but I think just for the sake for equity within our district and employees, but overall, I don't agree with how we structure our perfect attendant bonuses. I just want to make that perfectly clear. But I will vote yes because of the equity piece of it. It makes sense to include people that should be included like everybody else. But I think we're probably too far down the road to really make substantial changes to this in the future. But it is what it is, and it is what it is kind of thing. So
Yeah,
I am
and
in
John,
favor, but
David, you made me, they currently have that perfect attendance. Either they have perfect attendance or they do not. This really is a attendance bonus. It's no longer like and I understand where you're coming from, but.
all right. I will accept a motion. Good.
A motion to accept the perfect attendance bonus for year-round, or motion to change the perfect attendance bonus for year-round non-union employees to match the current AFSCME benefit. I don't know, i.e. the table. I don't know how we want to word that.
All right, first by Jonathan,
Second.
second by Jason. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, motion passes 5-0.
Okay, and then the last piece is administrator notification of retirement. Right now, it is a year. The suggestion is that we move it to October 1st, which is the date that all other employees have. The superintendent notification, because of the nature of the position, would remain at the 1-year notification, which would be June 30th of the school year prior to retirement. And we do believe that, excuse me, all other administrators, us finding out by October 1st, it gives them the opportunity to really make sure that this is something that they want to move forward with, and we believe we will still have plenty of time in the recruitment process to replace them. It's a year. It's like the superintendent, June 30th.
Motion to accept the administrator notification of retirement to be October 1st.
First by Jonathan,
Second.
second by Jason. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, motion passes 5-0. Thank you, Austin and team.
Thank you, school board, appreciate it.
Oh, just to be clear, is this, I forget what we discussed, is this effective immediately, I assume? Okay.
Yes.
All right, now the real fun. I shouldn't say that. All right, so we have our facilities update. So the, from our last meeting, I think we had a good spot. I think everyone was very, I think it was a productive meeting where everyone gave their feedback and thoughts on how we should proceed. As one of the speakers mentioned, an unofficial vote was to go to 38 million and go from there. Let's discuss that in more detail tonight based on the information that we got and figure out how we want to proceed moving forward so we can get this up and running and, as someone mentioned, really start educating and discussing within the public. So however we want to start, you can feel free. At this point, we don't need anybody to read us the information. It's pretty self-explanatory. I don't mind starting if that's all right. So what I would say is, very good document. I think the administration did a hell of a job of putting stuff together and put it in a format that's easily understandable. And I think at this point in time, whatever we decide tonight, we have to rebid these projects, right? They're a year and a half old in cost. So I think what we probably should do is rebid them all and then work our way to a number that we all can agree with. That would be my suggestion. And as I mentioned last meeting, I'm more in the $25 to $30 million range with a comprehensive plan to save for the future projects in a timeline that we need to figure out what that looks like. That's where I'm at, and I'd be interested to hear what you guys are at.
Just a question, when you say rebid, so if we were to settle on a number today, right, or I'm not gonna say one of these 5 options that are there, right, are you saying you want the administration to go and get specific bids for each one of these?
Bid's the wrong word, estimate.
Okay.
The estimator,
Okay.
Joe, I'm sorry, I should have, we took, Mark Jobin's company did this for us about a year and a half ago. He did a really good job. It didn't seem like it was a heavy lift, and I'm sure this time around he's got all the information and he just needs to tweak it. I would say, I don't think you should go halfway on this one, especially where it's one person doing it and can do it in a pretty good amount, do it in a reasonable amount of time. And then we come back and figure out, as Richard said, what the priorities are and figure out how to get to a number that we all can agree with and what that priority list looks like from there.
So with regards to the estimator, I'm assuming Jobin's going to charge based on the amount of projects. My opinion is to have some sort of a ballpark number that the board agrees upon. Look at one of these lists and then bring that to Jobin for an estimation, because if we're gonna pay additional for projects that probably aren't gonna happen, we're just spending money to get estimates that are gonna need to be re-estimated in 3, 5, 7 years. So I think we need to have some sort of ballpark as to what the entire board or, the majority of the board feels comfortable with from a dollar amount. Look at one of these columns, go back to Jobin, see what they come back with, and then adjust from there as needed.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that.
It'd be nice to know how much everything's going to, what an estimate would be for everything, but it's kind of irrelevant if the projects aren't going to be tackled in a reasonable amount of time, whether he's looking at 12 or 18 months, something along those lines.
Yeah, like I said, I don't disagree with that. I'll be honest, based off of how, the workshop went last time, I know we left with the number. I expressed my kind of concern about where we were with that number that night, and we had began that meeting with, having a consensus, and I know, a majority were in favor of that $38 million that, I'd thrown out there as, again, my personal opinion based off of a lot of different factors. Over the last couple of weeks, and I think, Tom and Richard had kind of covered this as well, as, I do think we need to ensure that we do get something passed. I certainly wish we had more feedback this evening or over the last 2 weeks as well from the public as well, but I don't think I didn't receive anything specific to that. And so knowing that, again, we weren't at a full consensus, I just want to make sure it is abundantly clear that I am open and more than willing to hear out, a different option. Again, if there is, and again, I'm just gonna, I know Brenda, David, and Michael, you three were kind of the ones that were, I don't know, maybe on the fence or just unsure. I'd be more than willing to, adjust that. Again, if there is a more, again, a thought of where we can be. The other thing I want to make sure that we do is, again, to do all projects is right now, or well, not right now, but in 2022 dollars is $48 million. That's not including any increase costs that you might see due to inflation. I think, we need to set a number for what we believe we can pass for a warrant, and then between now and, our public hearing, or when we are ready to really, put our final stamp of approval on a warrant, we also need to understand how do we bridge the divide from whatever number we decide on to completing the remainder of the projects that are on this list, because, I've said this time and time again, that anything that we don't get done on this list now is going to be a priority in, 3, 5, 7, 10 years. And I don't think that's fair to A, the community, or B, future boards to be saddled with that. I think that's similar to kind of the decisions that we're kind of saddled with today. So again, I think maybe that 38 million is a good ceiling. Again, I'd love to hear from you guys to say, hey, and I know David, you kind of expressed what 25 is kind of where you're at. So maybe somewhere in between. And I think we need to, again, continue to build consensus and get that buy-in on the board. And then that gives the direction to the administration, and that gives them the ability to, again, go get those re-estimates, and again, continue to build on this so that we do have a full comprehensive plan of really trying to repair as much, if not everything, that needs to be done.
So, I mean, this is the way that I look at it. We should be annually, raising a capital reserve for facilities and taking care of our facilities on a routine basis. We haven't been doing that. We haven't been, raising capital reserves. We haven't been funding these projects to the level at which they need to be funded, and now over a long period of time. So now we are in a bit of a need of a crisis solution. Under no circumstances would we ever normally want to bond repairs like this and incur interest. We're just at a point where there's no other way for us to get caught up. So for me, what we need to bond is the absolute minimum to allow us to get caught up on our facilities projects and into a cadence where we can fund facilities projects through capital reserves and the normal ways of doing this. So, I'm not exactly sure what that number is going to be, if it's that 25 million number we talked about, or if it's something higher or lower, but that, I think, is where our target needs to be. And, it's also, we need to make abundantly clear is just the numbers and the projects that can be completed as we go through this. Like everything that we have right now on this list, it's 2 years old. It's the, lowest level of estimates. So we can take this to the next step and we can have Jobin, reanalyze these projects and give us new estimates. But that, again, is just estimates. We're not going to know how much each of these projects costs to complete until a bond passes and we can go out to bid for the projects. So when we put together a list like this and we put together numbers, the projects that are completed with the bond may not cost what a list like this says it's going to cost, and we may not be able to complete all of the projects that you would put on a list. So I think that we need to be, clear about that as well, that when you look at, you have to look at the overall number. And, remember that it's not necessarily, going to get you everything.
I think that's why a number we need to kind of determine what the appetite of the board is, what we believe the community can support, because there's the goalpost is constantly moving, right? But whatever that number is, there's numbers being thrown around, we have to understand what the entire board can get behind and what we believe the community will support, right? So I think we've got to come up with some sort of figure, using what we have for figures, and then bringing things back to Jobin to re-estimate, and then bringing it back and saying, okay, we landed on X amount of dollars. We went to Jobin, here's what X gets us. Are we comfortable with this based on what we initially needed? If it's, depending upon what the fluctuation is, and then making a decision from there. But I think we've got to have a starting point as to what the board can get behind and what we believe the community will get behind and support. We have to have some sort of figure there.
Yeah, and I think it needs to be a figure that is enough to guarantee that we never have to bond for projects like these again, right? So that's my concern, is that if you do a $15 million bond or a $20 million bond, when we have close to $50 million of projects in today prices, we're not going to be able to get caught up through the normal process of budgeting and capital reserves. You're going to have to then down the road probably take out another bond to continue to get caught up. So, I really think that we want to hit a number that is going to make this the one and only bond that we ever have to do for these types of projects.
Agreed. So what is the number, right? Facilities committee recommend for a number. And does the board agree on said number, and what type of, you know what I mean? Because we've got to have something to bring to Jobin.
So I'm comfortable with the 30.4, bringing those projects to Jobin, and then when those come back, we hash out the details on what we can actually afford or willing to move forward with based on what the numbers come back at. Because the numbers come back at 35 million, who knows, Sure. So I'm comfortable with that number. Like I said last time, I'm nowhere near, I can't support the 38 unless there's a really, really good reason for it. I don't think running it back to the voters at the same number is gonna fly, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, I think if we take the $30.4 million list and we, take it to Jobin to get updated price estimates, it's almost certainly going to come in higher than 30.4 million. So, if a $30 million bond is, what we're looking at, we're, probably still going to be looking at paring it down once we get those estimates back. And, if we get new estimates for the $30.4 million list, it may end up being, closer to kind of the maximum that anyone's ever been talking about, that 38.6.
Yeah, I agree. I think the expectation is we will have to make some hard decisions on that list. But I think it's the list that's more palatable, and that 38.6 number would be 45. Who knows? But that's where I see where I could support moving forward, is looking at that number, and if we have to whittle it down based on what the numbers come back at, I think that's my opinion, what we should do.
I'm in agreement, 30, that number is a good starting point.
Can't even get this on. No, you didn't like it. And it's not what I think, it's what I listened to, right? We heard it tonight. I can support 15 maybe, or 10 or 15, and show us what you're doing and then come back. And I know that's a pain in the neck to come back and have to ask for another bond. I don't think we can ever say we're never coming back for a bond ever, because that's not realistic either. At some point, could be in 6 months, something could happen and we would need to get a special meeting and get a bond because we have some catastrophe happen. I'm not saying that's going to happen either, but you can't ever say you're never going to go for a bond. I'm concerned about the community. I think we got a pretty clear message. However, we did come close to passing that, the repair warrant. So it's like this for me. What is right? And I don't want to gamble, as you said, because whatever we do, I want it to pass. And it doesn't matter what I say or what you say. It matters what people believe and what they can afford at this point. And those things matter, right? The trust and credibility matters. Affordability matters. I think we could take people walking through our schools right now and they'd say, oh my gosh, yes, you need all of this, but I can't afford it. So where is that line? Because I don't know where it is. I mean, all of our taxes went up. Everybody talked about that last year, a lot. I don't know. I don't know. I'm nervous about going too high.
So Brenda, I'm going to speak for these other three. We hear that. It's not a gamble. There's risk inherent with every decision that we make. And so there's a risk with going with too much. There's also a risk with doing too little. But all of us have put out our neck on the line and said where we are comfortable with. And so, 52% of the voters were in favor of a 30-some-odd bond last year. Again, we threw out the number 38 million last meeting. There was 3 other board members that were in agreement with that. I have opened up and said again, the most important thing is to get something passed. And despite, you saying what you say doesn't matter, everything that we say matters. To every single one of us, it matters what we as public elected officials say and what we believe and what we support. And so I don't know, like, there's a risk in no matter which way we go, but it's also important that each one of us as board members shares what we are comfortable with. And so if you're only comfortable with 15 million, that is fine. But I think we've all said that it's also important to understand that we do need a consensus so that when we do come with a number, that when we do talk about things, we are credible, we do build trust, and that we are all on the same page because we all understand the importance of the issue that we are facing. So, and like Jason said, we need the administration needs guidance as far as, okay, well, if we're going to go to Jobin and ask for them to give us re-estimates, they need to know, is that $15 million because that's the consensus of the board, or is that $30 million, or is that $48 million? And so again, we continue to put out these numbers, and we are all, I believe, reasonable people. We are all trying to do what's in the best interest of not only the taxpayers, but also the district. I mean, the district is hurting, and we need to do something. And so it is important that, we are very clear, all of us, of where we are, because that's what we're hearing. And again, like I said, in the 2 weeks, we haven't all received an email. I know I've had separate conversations and one-offs, but No one's reached out to us. We've heard from 2 people tonight specifically regarding these things. And I think a lot of people are waiting to see what our potentially comprehensive plan is and where we are all at a consensus. Yeah, those are my thoughts.
But there was a consensus at the last meeting.
That consensus is it's almost unanimous. There was only 4 of us that were fine with that 38. And so, but if you want to take that is, because I know 2 of us are not here, and 2 of those people were supportive of the $38 million that I had thrown out there along with Jason. Both Jason and I have said tonight we are more than willing to compromise. And again, because we understand the importance of needing to get a warrant passed this year, because when we didn't get it passed last year, we aren't able to fix the banding at West Reading Brook, and now we're behind the 8 ball with the banding there, and now we're going to have to do something around some sort of netting or something to, make sure that we are providing a safe environment so that things aren't falling off the building. So yeah, we do need to, again, provide guidance. I think I said it a month ago. We have 10 meetings between then and the public hearing. I guess I would say we're down to 8 or maybe 7 meetings. And a lot needs to happen between now and that public hearing. And so we can't continue to delay, and continue to be stuck behind the 8 ball.
I think one of the things too to consider is last year when $10-15 million was talked about a lot at different, whether it's the public hearing or the deliberative, now that South Range seems like it's a long-term, the residents want South Range as a long-term solution, we've added $4 to $5 million more money to that project in these numbers. So 10 to 15 million, even if you wanted to be in that range, it's really not that number anymore because you've added more projects to keep South Range open a much longer period of time, since it looks like it's going to be here for a longer period of time than what we had voted on the prior 2 years as a board. So that's one of the things you got to consider. I mean, when you say, and I hear what you're saying, because that's what people were saying, the 15 million, that number makes sense to me last year if that's what the road people wanted to go, but that really number is not really that anymore. It's really more like 20 million now at a minimum because of the priorities of South Range have increased to keep it going for whatever the years are for that project. So.
I want to clarify that I didn't say that we would never, go for a bond again. If we have something catastrophic happened and you need it to be funded through a bond, you would do that. If we build an addition or a new building, you would bond. What I'm saying is that we should never be in the situation where that we have projects like these accumulate to the tune of $50 million. We need a solution now to get us caught up on this backlog, and then moving forward, we should be able to fund these types of projects through budgeting and capital reserves. But, what we need to focus on now is getting us to a point where that it is manageable to do so.
So, in looking at this over and over again, I think since we continue to kind of dance around, my recommendation, if we look at priorities, at 23.8 million in 2022, estimating, that's the number we need to bring, because not everybody, I think collectively, it seems like we feel pretty good in that $25 million range. That's 23.8. If we're looking at 10 or 12%, that probably puts us pretty close to 25 million. If there's 1 or 2 things that maybe we want to remove to kind of keep it at 25, 30, and now you're probably talking, as somebody said earlier, you're probably talking at the 38 that we started with. Let's look at priorities, because obviously they're priorities. That should be right around 25, and then bring that back to the full board when everybody's here to understand what it looks like with current estimation. And I'm hopeful that all 7 of us could get behind whatever that number is, give or take, and we can all say, yes, I support this number, and now we can all move forward, paddle in the same direction, and all be working towards the same goal of getting a significant amount of projects addressed over the coming years, in parallel to capital reserves and having a plan in place to cure and correct the remaining deficiencies to the tune of almost $25 million. I think we've gotta, we've gotta come to some sort of an agreement on a number, on a column to say, here's, guys, we need you to go get these figures, bring them back to the next board or whenever the stuff is ready, and then have discussion, and then have a plan to move forward.
Agreed, I'm with you, but I would, like I said earlier, I'd go with the 30.4 column and start there, and then we can whittle down from there. That's what, I'm okay with going closer to 30 million. I just wanna, I'd rather go with the larger list, for lack of a better term, to estimate out, and then we can figure out from there to bring it down. Because you're gonna have to, because you, like you said, 30, it's gonna be 35 or 36, we're gonna have to bring it down. So I would start there with the discussion, if everyone's okay with that.
The big thing, we got to come out of this, all 7 of us, on the same page. Because if we're not, my concern is we're going to be where we were last year. So we've got to find a number that all 7 of us agree that we can bring to the community. That is my concern as it stands today, because we danced around it 2 weeks ago. We're still kind of dancing around. I think we've got to find a way to come together on this one, because ultimately, like, kids deserve better, the teachers deserve better, and realistically, the taxpayers deserve better, because this is going to be, as we're going to see, from last year to this year to next year, this stuff isn't, Michael said it, I mean, I think we've all said it, it's not going away, right? None of this is going away, ever. Right? It's never going away, and oh, by the way, there'll be projects that come in behind it to continue the backlog. It's perpetuity, right? So we've got to kind of put a stop and stem some of what's happening, but we've all got to agree on what that number looks like in the plan forward.
Could you support somewhere in the 25 to $30 million range? Okay. All right, then.
I liked the 25, but personally, I like the 48. I know it's not realistic. It's not. We won't get it. So,
But that's the whole thing. Like, we all want everything, but if we all say it's 25, sounds reasonable, then let's go with that and start there, right? If you think that the number, Brenda, is good there, I want to make sure we're all in this thing together, so we're not in a situation like we were last year, where it was, we're trying to do a lot of things that people don't agree with things. It's, we're having issues amongst the board members, right? We all should be kind of working on this together.
but this number comes back from Jobin, and it's completely different, and we need to be able to realize that that may change. So we're looking at a number, and we're talking about numbers, and we're talking about doing this, but everybody in the community needs to understand that we're going to do this, we'll get estimates, and they may be much higher than the number that 25 or 30 or 38, whatever. So I guess I worry that we say a number and it gets repeated and it's gospel, right? But it's really not. So in talking about what we're doing, again, it's telling the story and telling the whole story. Not that we don't tell the whole story, but the whole story, that people are on vacation, they're not hearing what we're doing, it's getting reported incorrectly. All of those things that happen, we need to be able to fix them all, right? And make sure that people understand really what we're trying to do and that we need their support in the community.
I agree. We've got to start somewhere and come up with actuals, or at least current projections, right?
And again, I believe we're all reasonable. So if we say, hey, 25 million, hey, Jobin, do this, and they come back and I tell you, well, these $25 million in 2022 or 40 million, I I can tell you, I am not going to be like, yeah, let's do 40 million. It will be, all right, let's look at the list. Let's pare this down. Again, we have priorities, and out of priorities, if we have a list, the top things are the top priorities, the middle things are the middle priorities, and the bottom things. So if we say 25 is the number and it comes back as 40, then we start going from, all right, well, here's the bottom 5 things that make up $5 million. Is there anything in this list that, over the next 2 months or 3 months or until we get to the public hearing that we hear that, has changed, right? But I think we're all reasonable, and the message to the public should be, hey, the only thing that's going to be gospel is what we put on a warrant and what's on a ballot. And that's your opportunity to, again, make your voice even more heard than what it is whenever you reach out to us or whenever we have conversations with you. So, again, I believe I am flexible. I believe, we are all flexible, and we all have the ability to have the presence that we've reserved the right to change our minds or, change your course. Again, like I said, 2 weeks ago, I was at 38. I've taken the last 2 weeks, again, based off of how the meeting ended and, not having a consensus and saying, hey, I'm willing and open to work towards something that is, more feasible for others. Again, I understand my palate is different than everyone else's. So, yeah, I think it sounds like, 25 is that-ish, 25-ish is that number where we're at now. Again, do I think that's enough? Personally, no. I just hope that, whenever we do come with something towards the warrant, we're able to also deliver how do we bridge the divide of whatever number we put on a warrant to whatever else needs to be done over the next, course of the 7 to 10 years, because these things that aren't priorities today will be priorities in 5 to 7 years.
I would say for the purposes of what we need to accomplish right now, we throw the 30.4 number out the window. If we're looking at the list of priorities in near future, just the projects that are in that column. The next step is, if that's the list that we want to get updated pricing on, we ask the administration to go to Jobin, get a quote for that work, and then we come back at our next meeting and we vote to approve that expenditure, and we get those prices, and, and then it's off from there. We get that list back, and, if that 30.4 list comes back with new estimates closer to 40, then yeah, that's going to need to get pared down to 30 or 25 or whatever the board ends up deciding on. We don't need to decide that right now. We can see what the updated list from Jobin is going to look like, what the cost of each individual project is going to be. And, again, I think I said this earlier, is that we've got to remember, too, that whatever we bond, whether it be 25 million, whether it be 30 million, these lists of projects, even once we get updated estimates from Jobin, they're still just estimates. Every single one of these projects is going to have to go out to bid once the bond is passed, and only then will we know what these projects will actually cost.
Yeah, we might be faced with another tough decision once we get those things back, right? Like if we get the actual, like, we go estimates and we say, all right, we want to put a warrant out there. Again, the warrant only really gives us the total amount that we're going to get, and then again, if those estimates come out a little bit, again, say we settle on a $25 million number, comes back, these are going to be, we do estimates 28 million, then we're going to have tough decisions to make at that point.
Yeah, I hate to be devil's advocate, but if we bond 25 million and we have a list of $25 million worth of projects based on this estimate, I can almost guarantee you that we're not going to complete all those projects, because at least some of the projects are going to come in higher than what the estimate was. I can almost guarantee you that.
Well, I think the hope is that these 25% of other costs will somewhat offset that, because we'll have more hard numbers, right? I think we're really conservative, quite frankly. Not we, this is what we were given, but from the experts. But if you look at the 30 million column, the actual cost of the project before any additional cost is only 21 million. So you're looking at pretty much a third. So at the end of the day, we know that's not going to be a third. But I guess we won't really know until we find out. But the assumption is, I think it's a pretty good assumption, that it's right, exactly. All right, then, are we comfortable saying we'll take the column that is outlined with 30.4 million and have those estimated out, and then when those are ready, we'll have another meeting, we'll discuss it in another meeting and whittle that down to a number that's, and I'm actually, I forget who said it, you might have said it. I don't like locking us into a number. I'd rather have a range. I like the 25 to 30 million dollar range. I'd like to have some flexibility, and of course, we're gonna have flexibility either way, because we're not voting on it or anything. But talking about a message to the community or people who watch these videos at home at whenever they're leisure, I'd like to think of it as a range, but whatever, it doesn't really, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter, because we're
I
gonna,
think the stage that we're at, it has to be a range.
Yeah,
you know, I mean,
exactly.
these numbers are so, preliminary that, yeah, I mean, like we said, once, we have this in front of us today, but, if we come back in a month or however long it takes with updated estimates from Jobin, you're going to have an entirely different way of looking at it. Like we have a while to figure this out, and we want to make sure that we are, well, not only we have some time to figure this out, but, we want to make sure that we are taking every step, and, showing the community that, what's being put into this, and that, we're not just throwing numbers at the wall.
yeah, and to the other point, I think someone mentioned it, Richard mentioned it, from an education standpoint, now once we give this to Jeremy and his team to do his thing, we can start focusing on the next steps in the process, what it looks like to educate and start mapping out a plan to get to the most amount of people in the least amount of time. So Jeremy, Jane, are you guys good if we move forward with that column that's labeled 30.4 million with Mark? And it would be nice to know sooner rather than later what his timeline is to complete something like this, just so we can kind of plan from a scheduling perspective, and then, we'll go from there.
As a piggybacking on that, kind of, I'm glad we're kind of there, or at least I hope we are. I think the other thing, I know Michael mentioned it, was capital reserve. So I think, again, I don't think we're going to come to we're going to figure that out tonight, but I think that's also something that we all need to have, understanding of, how do we go about that? Because, the way I kind of would assume it's going to happen is, we get the, and I may mess up the names of these, but the unreserved or the unassigned fund balance at the end of the year, take money from that and put it towards, would be something put towards the capital reserve. So I think we all also need to start understanding where we are comfortable with as a capital reserve that we would like to start funding. And the question, and I will throw this out there as well, is the question that we need to ask is how do we ensure that we don't fall into a similar, I hate saying this word, but for lack of a better term, a similar trap to what we did last year, where we inundate the voters with too many options on a ballot. Because if we do, we'll have a budget that will 100% be on the ballot. We'll have there'll obviously be so the budget, the warrant article for capital reserves, capital improvement warrant, a potential capital reserves, and then again we have the DEA collective bargaining agreement that will be on there as well. So that's four, again, which is what we kind of ran into last year. So I think we have to ask that question: is do we start do we start funding that this year? And if we do, B, how much are we willing to put into that to start?
Yeah, I mean, I think that you're probably right. There could definitely be some confusion at the ballot box if you see, hey, there's a bond for capital improvements, and there's also a capital reserve for improvements. What's what here? Having those two things on the ballot in the same year could prove to be confusing. So, if I think that, even if it doesn't start this year, moving forward, whether that starts next year, we should be putting money into a capital reserve account for facilities every year forever, because we're still going to have a balance of projects on this list in front of us today that are not going to be completed by a bond. And you're also going to have projects, come up as things that we consider to be in good condition today get old. I mean, that's what happens. We're putting a roof on a building this year. I don't know how, what the warranty is on the roofs we're putting on this summer, but if it's a 20-year roof, in 2044, we're going to have to start looking at putting a new roof on. So, we're going to have to, you have to think that far ahead and, make sure that we have reserves to take care of these projects when they come up.
By then, we'll have a constitutionally funded system. It'll be all good. You good? All right. Sorry for the joke there.
Can't
All
help
right.
yourself.
No. I think Jane and Jeremy have their marching orders, and yeah, just keep us updated what Mark says on a timetable. That'd be helpful. And then, I think we got our marching orders from a facilities committee directive, right?
Yep.
We got
Do
the
you need to get a cost from Jobin to do the estimates? Is that something we'd have to vote on?
Yeah. Yep. So yeah, get an estimate from an invoice or estimate from him, and we'll vote on
Or
it.
how much he's going to charge
Yeah,
to do the project.
exactly.
Okay.
So, man, so the 27th.
And what was the total number of the
The column that's
allocation?
labeled 30.4 million, priorities in near future.
Could we vote today to, authorize them to spend up to X amount?
Nah, I don't want to do that.
Do you mean for
Well, I
Joe,
mean,
for Mark?
I don't want to
Jovan?
do that.
Jeremy and I can reach out to him tomorrow. It was just a couple weeks ago that we reached out to him, so he's expecting us to follow up and see whether he's willing to do the estimates and if his timeline is available, and I'll ask him for an estimate.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. I can email it out to the board. when I
Yeah,
get it.
then, yeah, if we can vote on it on the 27th, that'd be helpful. Actually, it needs to happen on the 27th. It shouldn't be helpful. It needs to happen on that day without putting too much pressure on them.
What needs to happen by the 27th?
We need to vote on a cost.
We need an estimate for his services that
Yeah.
we can vote
Oh,
on.
I thought you meant an estimate.
no,
for
no.
all-
27, yeah.
Yeah,
I'm sure he'll give us an estimate for the 27th.
awesome. And then, during facilities, we'll talk more about what Jonathan just brought up, obviously, and then obviously at how we proceed on, getting the message out and talking through that with as many people as we can. And I think we've already kind of talked about some ideas that are really good, so we'll just have to kind of formalize that and see where we're at. So one other thing I wanted to bring up before we move on is, there was a lot of, I wouldn't say a lot of discussion. A few people brought up the need to talk about Derry Village simultaneously as part of this process, which I tend to agree. So one of the things, I kind of jumped the gun, but one of the things we want to do is invite Dave Karen and Bev Donovan to one of our facility meetings so we can start the conversation, get their feedback on what their thoughts are for that piece of property. Just kind of see, in the spirit of working together and getting as many opinions and discussion points out there for us. I think it's helpful, to get them involved. And the goal was to bring them to a facilities meeting in the very near future, hopefully sometime in the next week or two. Just want to make sure anyone on the board is okay with that. It's strictly fact-finding and understanding where we're at and what some of the pitfalls may be. If we, whether it's residential, commercial, what do we do if it's commercial? What do we have to do to kind of understand what we don't know? And so I think that's something we should do simultaneously as well, as long as everyone's good with that.
So I'm good with that. I think we need to, I would ask the committee to also really explore all avenues, right? So this is obviously looking at it residential or commercial. Obviously, if we are unable to, or it doesn't meet, what our appetite is as far as, if we, let's just say we don't get a value that we think is in line with what it should be. And, you know, I know there's been discussions about possibly renting it out and still allowed in town use it, blah, blah, blah. But I think we also need to, I know Jane has given us mothball estimates about, you know, I think it's between 800 and, sorry, not 800,000, $60,000 per year to mothball, understanding that. And again, if also understanding what happens if we're not able to sell it, what do we do, right? Does that look like a demolition? Again, I'm not saying I'm for that, but I think we do need to understand what the potential would look like if that was the case, because I think one of the things we may want to avoid is if we can't sell it and then we have the property and we're continuing to put $60,000 in there per year, again, that's $60,000 that's going not to our facilities that we're keeping, nor is it going to students or teachers. And again, obviously, it's not going to equate to the cost of demolition within, you know, a few years. But I just don't want to have to. Yeah, I think we should probably try to avoid keeping that property for a long term and continuing to mothball it without having some sort of plan. So, and any other avenues that, you know, I have no idea, but anything else that may relate to the Derry Village property.
Yeah, I mean, I think all options need to be on the table. Obviously, we've been doing a lot of talk about selling the land, but, you know, I also don't know that that's necessarily, you know, the right move. I think that, you know, the focus really needs to be on the structure that's on the property. You know, I mean, that's what costs us money, is having to mothball that structure or having to, you know, worry about maintaining it, because it's going to cost us money to maintain it for, as you know, whether or not it's being used. And I mean, you know, we talk about mothballing. I mean, you know, that building is already in an advanced state of disrepair today. So, you know, I mean, if we mothball that building, you know, could you even, if you had to reopen it in 2 years, would it, you know, what condition would it be in? You know, would it even be in a usable condition? You know, are we paying X amount of dollars, you know, for a building that is going to continue to decay to a point that it's not even usable? You know, I mean, the amount of money that it would cost today, you know, to improve that building, if we needed to reopen it in 2 or 3 years, how much money would that cost to get that building up to a habitable level, you know, after it's been mothballed for 2 or 3 years? I mean, at that point, we'd probably be better off adding additions to one of the other 4 elementaries than ever thinking about reopening that building again. So, you know, to me, that, you know, our focus needs to be, you know, on the structure, because it doesn't cost us anything to hold the land, right? I mean, you know, there would be the potential, you know, income from the sale of the land, but in terms of retaining the land, there's no cost associated with that, right?
Cut the grass and plow and.
Which the town already does, right? I mean, they maintain the fields.
Why
and
are we
everything.
talking about
They
reopening
maintain the
the
ball
school?
fields, we maintain the front and all the surrounding property. I did speak to Gordon about this because we've had a few people who have inquired about the property. You would have to divide the property from West Running Brook. And obviously you'd lose ball fields for the town, whether that's, you know, consideration or not. But there is a lot more to selling that property than not. So I did take a lot of notes, talked to him for a long time about it, and I can have more information for the board at the next meeting if you want to have a summary of what you would need to do. The voters would actually, it would have to be on a warrant article to sell it. So you'd have to have, same thing for Floyd. Voters approved, I know you're giving me the look, David. We had to put on a warrant article for Floyd, and voters would have to approve a sale of the property.
So, yeah. So I think that our focus needs to be not so much on selling the property, but what do we do with the structure that is on the property?
Sure, and so right now, as you know, we're moving all the furniture out and things are getting done, and it'll kind of get buttoned up. We know that it needs to have a new roof. We know that the exterior needs to be replaced. Jeremy did talk about the possibility of whether they will drain the lines so that we're not going to have to worry about, you know, any freezing pipes and things like that, but there will be maintenance and custodians throughout the building multiple times during the course of a week. Always want to make sure that that property is still being maintained and there's no damage or anything like that. So right now, we're not going to shut the water off until we have direction from the board on what they want to do, but the property, although it will be empty, school district staff will be in and out of that building daily to check on the property. It's still monitored by security cameras, it's still on fire systems are still in place, all of those things. But yes, I think however long you can, whether you want to use that building again, the roof is definitely a serious issue that's going to have to be fixed, as well as your HVAC system.
Yeah, and just the fact that, like, I mean, especially for an older building like that, I mean, kind of part of what keeps it going is the fact that there's people in there every day, and it's being, you know, taken care of like that. I mean, I think that the moment, you know, the moment that a building, you know, you drain the lines, you turn the lights off, and it's just sitting, you know, it's going to be deteriorating at a more rapid pace than it even has been. And I mean, we've talked about, you know, in the facilities committee, we've discussed, you know, just a few like high level things, you know, like the 2000 edition there is in pretty good shape. It's really the original 1966 building and the 1970s edition that are teardowns. You know, so that 2000s edition, you know, which includes the gymnasium half of the cafeteria gymnasium, I mean, you know, if you were to demolish everything but that and seal the wall up, I mean, you could potentially use that as an SAU building and sell the, you know, the SAU property. That would at least divest you from a little bit of property, and another building that is, I mean, the SAU building, we never talk about that, but that building is a huge problem. Well, yes, we talk about it, but we don't, like, you know, like, you look at this bond, there's no money in there for the SAU building.
I know Rob Spirito brought that to us as an idea. I know Austin's brought that as an idea of just using that back part of the building and demoing the front. And then you could put the SAU building on the books for sale for the town. That's definitely a feasible option. And, you know, Tech would be looking for a place, probably. The warehouse, as you know, if anybody's toured that, they don't have restroom facilities in the warehouse, so looking for office space for them would work out well. So right now, we're going to be using Derry Village mainly for storage, now that the programs are done summer.
Need to building in the future. And, you know, also you did touch on, you know, the baseball fields. Like, we've had conversations with, you know, Parks and Rec and the Derry Diamonds, and, you know, even though the school district even today hardly uses those fields, I think, you know, last year the only thing we used them for was for West Running Brook baseball. And I would assume that this year the district is not going to use those fields at all. You know, so, but they are an integral part of the Derry Diamonds program. You know, if they were to lose those fields, they would need to be replaced somewhere else in town.
Yeah, there's a lot of logistics to hash through. So I think that's part of the facilities kind of task as well, because I think, correct me if I'm wrong, we should have some sort of sentiment when people are voting on 25, 30 million, whatever the number is. They probably need to understand what the plan or objective is moving forward for that property as well. So we, you know, this is very preliminary. I think we pick this up in the future when we have more concrete information to provide. But I just want to give the board a heads up. That's the next steps that we kind of going to go through. It's a little more fact finding, and then we start seriously discussing what the next steps are. All right, that's all I have. Facilities, anything else?
David?
Yeah, go ahead.
If I could just circle back to Jobin. Jane looked up 2 years ago. He did his estimates. It was $6,000. I don't know in it to save 3 weeks. Is there an, you know, if and again, I don't know if 30.4 million would, all of those things on there would cost, you know, just the fact that it's 2 years, but is there a maximum number that the school board would be comfortable with Jane moving forward with Mark Jobin so that we could, if he was within a certain number, that we could move this forward sooner than the 3 weeks, or would you prefer?
As much as I want to do that, Austin, I really do. I don't think it's the right thing to do, unless other people convince me otherwise. But I honestly do think once he gets working, it's not going to be a heavy lift for him, because maybe I'm wrong, but he has all the information, he has everything ready to go. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but I just, that's not something I'm comfortable with, but I'll listen to any suggestions otherwise.
Yeah, I mean, one question I would have is how much were the total dollar amount of projects that he estimated out? Just because I have a feeling it's going to relate to the number of projects, or that maybe it's the number of projects that were estimated. But yeah, I mean, I don't want to, the entire list. I mean,
In 2022, it was about $44 million worth of projects
so, I
that
mean,
were.
I can't imagine it's going to be more than $6,000. But from a timing perspective, I do think this gives at least people, not just next meeting, but potentially the next meeting after that, to also continue to give their feedback as well. I don't know if that, so, I mean, I'll be honest, a 6 1/2, half a dozen either for me.
Yeah, what I'll say is, you know, if we do that, if we wait, I mean, we're going to have something concrete by the end of September, I would say, that we can push forward and start discussing in more detail with the community with actual numbers. So I know timing-wise, we're not totally out of the ballpark, in my opinion. As long as we can commit to getting this up and running by the last meeting in September, I can't see why we couldn't do that, unless Mark says he can't, but we'll know that, exactly. So, why don't we wait, when we do it the right way, we'll vote on it on the 27th. And then we'll go from there, and just,
Can I ask one thing of the facilities committee?
yeah.
Even if it's just broad, my suggestion or ask would be to maybe map out a project plan around what the timelines look like to get bids back, to bring them to the board, certain milestones, just so there's some sort of roadmap that gets us to public hearing into March. It can obviously, listen, things change, we have to be nimble, but
The current the projects on that 30.4.
just get us to a point where we are right now, what needs to happen, high level, and some milestone dates that we can all kind of track against and know where we're checking in against at meetings.
Got it.
Marks to get us to
Exactly.
March.
Not a problem. All right. All right, moving on. Let's go to Jane's update.
Okay, just to continue with facilities, and I think somebody mentioned the netting around West Running Brook. Joe, Austin, Jeremy, and myself had a Zoom meeting with Alan from Gale Associates, and I know that after the last meeting, I had anticipating posting a public hearing for tonight's meeting, which would have happened at the beginning of the meeting. I chose not to do that after speaking with Alan because having the public hearing was going to be try to allocate funds for the netting for West Running Brook. After speaking with Alan, the contractor that he used for doing those estimatings and who always does that work for them would not be available until after winter time. So that really kind of changed the plans. And so there was really no point having a public hearing if I don't have a close estimate. The estimates that he originally gave would have been from the first contractor. So right now, Alan is looking at what he estimates the cost if he was to 100% do the 100% of the areas for the netting. So we're waiting for him to get back to us on that, and then I'll come back to the board with where we need to move forward with that. And we may take an alternative action and maybe just put some fencing around the areas that we feel are the highest need of concern at this point. But that's where we stand with the Gale project. Sticking with West Running Brook, they have been out working on the roofs continuously, so that project is still ongoing. Also at West Running Brook, they are working on the renovations to some of the rooms inside of West Running Brook. The sprinkler system is still being worked on. The playground has made significant progress. If anybody has gone out there, I drove by about 7:05 this morning when it was at the height of pouring rain, and they were all out there working. So the project's really coming along. I encourage people, if they want to see or bring their kiddos that are going to be going to West next year, to go see the progress. That would be great. Over at Gilbert H. Hood, they are still working on the science rooms. There's a lot of progress there. Honeywell is still working on the HVAC project for Gilbert H. Hood. All of these projects, the contractors are doing their best. They know their timeline. So if you go into a building, you might be a little panicked, but they're hoping to meet their marks to have everything ready for when the start of school. And the other schools have normal summertime projects. We have a crew that are going around just painting everywhere, and I'm getting so much good feedback. Kim comes back all the time when she's been in a different school and tells me another room that's been painted, and I've heard feedback from people that are just can't believe what a difference just painting some of the rooms are doing. And again, we're doing that in-house with all our staff. Today, Trend was out doing the first of the furniture moves. So they started at Derry Village, and Tammy Edgerly, who's been our team lead for custodians over there, took the lead on that project in her building, because that's the building with the majority of furniture being moved to all the other school locations. So that will take a couple days to do that, and then they'll move on to our other schools. Then they're going to kind of have cleanup days where they'll come back for any furniture that hadn't been assigned that now needs to go to another school. And they'll do that, I believe it's on the 19th, will be their cleanup day. They'll also be there next week to do some additional furniture moves. So there is a lot going on in the district still. I know that everybody here has done tours. Oh, Mr. Tripp left. Mr. Tripp did a tour. So we have had people in and out of the buildings, and I think that everything is pretty much on target for where it needs to be. Laura did get the DEEP playground grant approved, so we met with the playground company at the same time I was meeting with the one over at West Running Brook. So she's already picked out her equipment, the colors, everything is ready to go. They won't start that project for DEEP until October, when when the playground equipment comes in. So Moore & Contracting will also be doing that project, and they want to make sure that it's done prior to November, because of that poured rubber material that's got to go down for the play area, which, as you know, is now mandated when you have a playground. The playground company does not like to install that really much into November, because he said it just doesn't settle correctly. So other than that, that's it for facilities. It's a lot going on. Props to the custodians and maintenance department. They're really doing an amazing job. As far as food service, 2 years ago, after COVID, and we had a high surplus in our food service, we had to have a spend down plan. Now, part of that spend down plan, you are not allowed to spend down student debt, so that's not something I could do with it. However, in coming up with the spend down plan, we put in to purchase new equipment. So our new ovens got installed at East Derry recently, and Christina, the food service director, sent me some pictures, so I will put that in for the next board update on the 27th, so you can see the progress over there. They also will be getting a replacement van. Their van is actually not operable right now. So they will be getting that. And again, that's all part of an approved spend down plan that we worked on with Austin and Christina. And for finance, we are prepping for our audit, although Our audit is mostly going to just be remote, putting it all on a portal. They're not going to be coming down probably until late October. So I think we're the only client in their division right now that's a school district. So we're going to see how that's going to work out for us this year. But Steve and I are working diligently to get as prepared as we can for the audit. We are going to be uploading trial balances and all of that information to them in order to be able to do our DOE 25, which is 25 pages of detailed finances. That's a summary of the 23-24 fiscal year. And by the 27th, we will have our estimated unreserved fund balance for you so that we can maybe get a vote if you want to retain or not retain. So we'll bring that forward. The reason why I'm only holding off is because I do want the auditors to have eyes on our trial balance before I give you a number. But we're close. We do have Cheryl Rich coming in. She's our former accountant, staff accountant, and she's been coming in working nights with us to also get us through. We're still open. We still have an accountant position open if anybody's interested. And that's all I have for my report.
So, Jane, thank you. It sounds like, obviously, there's a lot being done and there's a lot of good stuff going on, so I appreciate all the hard work everyone's putting in, especially your team with the audit. They've been working late nights, so thank you for that. It's gonna be good. We're gonna have a good school year, and things will be really good.
Did you want me to go over the calendar, or do you want to do that afterwards?
I'll do it during
Okay.
committees. Personnel, Austin.
Okay, I have a couple of resignations that I hope the school board will accept with regret. Alyssa Burnham, classroom teacher, South Range Elementary School, and Erin Kelly, special education teacher, Gilbert H. Hood Middle School.
Move to accept with regret. Thanks for everything you've done for the district.
First by Jason. Second by Jonathan. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, motion passes 5-0. All right, Austin, you're up.
Okay, the Children's Dental Network has been servicing Derry students and families for over 2 decades, providing free service to students most in need. Unfortunately, they lost their primary funding from the Alexander Eastman Foundation, and the program will no longer exist as of the 1st of January 2025. Luckily for 2 of our elementary schools, Grinnell and Barker, there are reserve funds that will allow for services at these 2 schools in October. I want to personally thank the executive director of the Children's Dental Network, Diane Powers, and all of her staff over the years for their service to our students and families, and I wish her and her staff well in the future. I have an update regarding elementary enrollment from yesterday, Monday, August 5th. Thank you to the principals, assistant principals, school secretaries for these updates. There is an attachment in there. As we have done in the past, at this time during the summer, we have not identified the overflow school for kindergarten. In this way, we can more accurately account for the late registrations. As we get closer to the start of school, we will be better able to determine the most appropriate elementary school to house the overflow kindergarten students. Schools in which kindergarten seats are full are letting the families know that their child will be going to the overflow school, and they will be notified once we have identified which elementary school will be used for the overflow kindergarten students. So if you take a moment and look at this document, one of the areas that we were concerned about was Ernest P. Barker Elementary School, grade 4. They were 2 over, and through moves, they now have 2 seats available. They went from 2 seats beyond the 25 max, and now they have two classes with 25, 2 classes with 24. That's still close. We will be keeping an eye on that. in East Derry, grade 3 right now has a couple of open seats for their, 2 of their classrooms are at the 22 max, and 2 are at 21. Grinnell Elementary School, grade 3, I apologize, grade 2 has, which is a 20 max, has 1 class with 20 and 3 with 19. So they have 3 open slots there that we hope will be A-OK. South Range, currently, well, kindergarten is over by 4, but that will be overflow. And there's 2 grades, grade 2 and grade 3 right now, that are +1. Grade 2 has 3 classroom teachers at 20, 20, and 21, and grade 3 has 4 classroom teachers at 22, 22, 22, and 23. So we will be keeping an eye on that. And last year at our leadership retreat, the second Thursday, Wednesday or Thursday in August, we came to terms with where the overflow is. So hopefully we'll be doing that at least by then. Does anybody, I'll pause for a moment. Does anybody have any specific questions about enrollment at this moment?
Can I just ask a question about your previous? Do we have any other opportunities in the area to recruit to replace the Children's Dental Network that you know of? I don't even know. That's something we can look into, or
Say that again, for which?
to replace the Children's Dental Network? Do we have? Is there other organizations in the area that I can look to? But I just
That's a good question. They've been here longer than I've been here.
No.
So it's just been one of those things that we've always had. I'm not saying we by any means took it for granted, but
Okay.
you know,
Just curious.
I might start with Diane Powers, the executive director. She probably
Yeah.
might have some thoughts or some ideas, but
Okay.
I don't know of any other organization that does something like that. All right. Now that July is over and we are in the month of August, and I would agree with Jane Samad, this is kudos to our maintenance department and custodial department. You go into those schools right now, and it's a little scary what the hallways look like and where things are and so forth. But they have their system, and a lot of times it looks like that because they have another room that's completely empty that they're stripping down and the whole 9 yards. But every year, somehow, it all gets taken care of. So kudos to those guys and gals. So I have an update about all the beginning of the school year activities and events. Tuesday, August 13th, school secretaries return, and the annual transportation welcome back meeting is held at 8 a.m. in the Barker cafeteria. Tuesday, the 13th of August, and Wednesday, the 14th, G&D Associates will continue their work with the strategic plan team to develop our new district-wide strategic plan. And the following day, Thursday, 8:15, all administrators will participate in a one-day leadership retreat in the Barker Library to coordinate and prepare for the upcoming school year. Monday, August 19th, all new teachers will attend a new teacher orientation, or new staff orientation, I should say, and these will include meetings with their assigned mentor teachers. On both Monday, the 19th, and Tuesday, August 20th, teachers and other professionals are invited to sign up for a professional learning academy consisting of a number of different topics in a mini course format. And I want to thank our Director of Curriculum Grants, Kim Conant, and her crew in curriculum, Erin Chouinard and Mitch Edwards and Kim Carpentino, and even Dennis Mayo, long distance at the current time, as he's hopefully in the continuing his process of recovery from cancer, and Joe Crawford for all of their work on this. Wednesday, the 21st of August, is the first day back for teachers and other professional staff, as well as our special education assistants who will be involved in an all-day training. And the professional staff have their first of a day duty-free for unpacking and classroom setup. Thursday, August 22nd, first day for all of the other assistants, and it is a day dedicated to building specific professional development activities. Friday, August 23rd, is the second duty-free day for unpacking and classroom setup. Due to the 2 duty-free days this year, we will not be meeting in the Pinkerton Academy Stockbridge Theater as a whole staff for an opening day ceremony. Monday, August 26th, staff workshop and student orientation. All schools will hold a meet and greet orientation open to all students and families at all of our schools, followed by school-based activities and staff preparation and planning. Times for the orientation are as follows: grades K through 4 in the elementary schools, 9:30 to 10:30 a.m., and grades 5 through 8 in the intermediate and middle school, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. Tuesday, August 27th, is the first day of school for all students, followed by Wednesday and Thursday, the second and third day, respectively, of school for all students. Once again, students and union staff has Friday, the 30th of August, will be no school to provide for a 4-day Labor Day weekend. And Monday, 9/2, there is no school for students and all staff for observance of the Labor Day holiday. And then on Tuesday, September 3rd, everyone is back in school to continue the 2024-2025 school year. Thank you.
So, was any thought given to the deep open house being the same time as the elementary schools? Only because there's families that have to go in 2 different directions with new deepers and also new students going to different elementary schools?
I believe the Deep, I don't happen to have it. I believe Deep is doing their own
Oh, it is? Okay.
open house. Yeah, I
think some
apologize.
information that went out was the same as the elementaries.
And
I might have a connection to that.
it's a good reminder because oftentimes Deep gets overlooked as far as what's going on in their building. And if somebody can look that up and interrupt at some point and indicate when the Deep open house would be, that would be great.
Awesome, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Austin. Don't have any FYIs tonight. We'll go to committees, get the manifest.
I would motion to approve the manifest for a grand total. Are you ready? Whoever's taking notes for this? $4,164,532.44. Of that, general payroll consisting of $704,132.82, and general expenses of $2,460,399.62.
All right, we have a first by Jonathan,
Second?
second by Michael. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 4-0. Oh,
Actually.
abstain. Okay, 4-0-1. All right. All right, so I do have an update. We met as a finance committee today to discuss upcoming budget cycle, kind of some topics there. Everyone should have in front of them a draft schedule for the upcoming sessions. So one of the big things we talked about was, I think we have like 7 new fiscal advisors, maybe more. We got a lot of new fiscal advisory members, 7 or 8 new ones, 2 new board members, an alternate that's on the fiscal advisory committee. So that first meeting is going to be a training for those individuals, rather than, you'll just have it as a group training. Jane will go through the overview summary and then do a kind of a dive into what the general ledger looks like, how to understand what goes through our budget process. So that will be focused on the first meeting. Then Jane's committed to getting us a copy of the budget prior to the October 29th meeting. And then I'm trying to think what else we talked about. We talked about trying to figure out some default items to get some clarifications on some items that we may want to look at regarding transportation, and get some further clarification if we can put those in the default budget. So we talked about items like that. It wasn't a very lengthy meeting. It was more of kind of just get the timeline, understanding of the first meeting, and then, objectives. If they run into problems, we'll have another meeting, kind of go through that. But yeah, so that's what that's looking like. Once again, we talked about the capital reserve options as well during that meeting, and trying to see how we can look at that for this year, and see, or not. But so we had those discussions as well. That's about it. I don't know, Jonathan, you have anything else you want to?
Yeah, the other thing I would potentially, I'm trying to remember, I know we have 4 budget review sessions here. Usually that I don't know if it's 4 that we have, or if we add a 5th one as needed. So yeah, I don't know if that's, maybe we consider possibly squeezing another one in December 10th, make the 17th. Hopefully, I think part of this is starting it earlier, so that hopefully, we can, everyone is prepared and ready, and that we don't need, extra sessions than we already have, because as you can see, there's the 4 plus the 2 the other ones that are in preparation of that. So yeah, that was about it.
Yeah, it's a good point. And I think this year, there's a lot less transition going on, so hopefully we can, we'll go through this at a pretty good clip. And if we have to, yeah, we can add another meeting, and we can kind of gauge it on the 3rd or the 19th, so we're at. It's a good point. One thing I did want to ask, this is not budget related, is Cliff, one thing I'd like to do is, can we set up a transportation committee meeting prior to the start of school and have first student either be on the phone or in person? I'd like to understand the plan, just, how it looks with the new route, with everything, with the whole, I want to make sure everyone's ready to go.
Certainly, and I can give you an update right now as to what I've been working on is this week. In fact, by Thursday, each family will be receiving a personalized letter telling what bus their child has been assigned, where the stop is, and what time within 10 minutes either side of the stop time where they're going to catch that bus. We will also be posting all of the routes by Thursday on the district website.
That's great. So maybe, I don't know, first day of school is 27th, maybe the week prior, they don't have to come in, but at least get them on the phone so we can make sure they give us all comfort level that we'll get off with a hitch.
David Fairweather also has a new replacement because he's retired,
Right.
and we can meet Ben.
Perfect. So that, yeah, you pick the date, pick some dates, and Brenda, myself, and Michael, I think we're on the committee, so if you guys don't mind, I didn't ask you, but I think it's worthwhile meeting to make sure that we're 100% ready to go. But that's awesome news. Thank you, Cliff. Any other committee meetings anyone wants to discuss? Compensation, no, nothing else, right? I think so. Yep, okay. All right then, other business.
I don't have other business, but I think we didn't expect Anthony to be here because of these summertime meetings, but if you have any, we'd love to hear, obviously from Pinkerton, so I would say if you have anything, we'd love to hear what's going on, because obviously your guys' first day of school is approaching as well.
Mine's the 29th. That'll be for juniors and seniors. And I think freshmen and sophomores are either the day before or the day after. We do it staggered, so half of us are there. But that's all I have right now. You should have a little more next meeting, if not the meeting after.
Anthony, was there something for freshmen today?
Freshman field day was today.
Thank
So
you.
that was, I'm not a freshman anymore, so I completely forgot about it. So all the incoming freshmen went in, they got a tour of the campus, they got their IDs, computers, stuff like that. Maybe they met some of their teachers. I met a couple when I went, but not all of them. But that was today, yes.
All right, I don't have anything else, so if we're all good, I will accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
First by Jason, second by Jonathan, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you, and have a great rest of your summer. Next time we meet will be first day of school. Thank you.